Hi, I'm Susan Batang from the Quiet Zone Coaching. Welcome back to part 4 of my video series on how can I find happiness. Happiness is something that we all want. We all want to feel good. So these are all strategies that you can use to create the happiness in your own life. Today we're going to talk about working through negative thoughts and emotions. Okay. We talked the last time about creating values, managing expectations, and using the power questions to get through stressful situations or situations in which we are feeling unpleasant emotions and things like that. Um, so now what we're going to talk about is what we do with those emotions later. Okay. The example that I used yesterday was somebody cutting you off in the car. Okay. So you're driving to work and somebody cuts you off and you use the power questions to get through it. How important is this really? And, what's something I could do about this? And, okay. But you find that the response that you have, the anger and irritation, are out of proportion to the event. So you have labeled that emotion. I was angry, I was irritated, I was frustrated that this person behaved this way, and you put it on the back burner. And now you have to decide what was going on. You want to pick that apart and unpack the box a little bit. And you can do this with any negative situation, negative emotion. I'm just using the traffic example um, to give you an idea of what exactly to do in the situation. So it's important, as I had mentioned in the last video, it's important for us to process these negative emotions. Otherwise, if we keep pushing them down or pushing them away, they're going to come back and bite us harder and stronger. And we're going to keep repeating the same negative behaviors over and over again. We're going to find ourselves feeling the same way over and over again. So by figuring out where some of these faulty expectations come from and what in our past, in our history, may have triggered that emotion, that helps keep us from repeating the same behaviors and expectations. We talked a little bit about neural pathways in one of the earlier videos. And what's happening is when we're experiencing these negative emotions, there's a neural pathway that's getting fired. And what we can do is sometimes if we find the source of those emotions, we can kind of shut down or prune that neural pathway so that we can create a new, more positive one that will become our default neural pathway. Um, so when we were talking about the power questions, one of them was, what is it about this experience that is making me feel a certain emotion, and to identify and label the emotion, because by identifying and labeling them, um, it keeps them from uh, being who we are at that moment. It puts them in a container and it says, okay, here it is. And we can throw it in the back seat, throw it on the back burner if we have to. And now it's time for us to sit down and pick it apart. Um, so why did this negative emotion color our entire day after somebody cut us off in traffic? Okay. So when you do have a few moments, you pull out your journal, get out your gratitude journal, because you can write all these things down in your gratitude journal. By working through them in writing, again, it reinforces neural pathways, and also it is something to refer to later, if you feel like you're experiencing the same thing again. So the first thing that we do is to identify and label that emotion. I got angry because someone cut me off in traffic. Good, you've identified and labeled that emotion. Um, Sometimes, if you are experiencing a negative emotion and you don't know where it came from, try to figure out what you were thinking about or what was happening in your environment. And this is where being mindful comes in really handy. Um, so what was I thinking about? What was going on? What caused that emotion to pop up out of the blue, um, out of nowhere? So sometimes it has nothing to do with the event that's going on at the moment. It just triggers a memory. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to take these emotions and write them all down. There may be more than one. Okay. And for each one, you want to ask yourself, why? Why was I angry that I got cut off in traffic? And write the answer down. I was angry because I was driving along minding my own business and some jerk came along and cut me off. Why did that make you angry? Why was that a problem? Because he shouldn't have done that. Well, why not? Are we in control of his behavior? No. Okay. So what you're going to do is you are going to work your way through to a core. Okay. So why was that upsetting to you? You may find that you're suffering from what's called a cognitive distortion. A cognitive distortion is when your mind is tricking you into believing something is true when it's not. Okay. So there are a lot of cognitive distortions. And I mean, I have a list. There's like 20 of them. Okay. I have a whole list. I'm not going to go into all of them. If you want to get a list of cognitive distortions and read through them and see if your behavior reflects any of these things, just Google it. It's real easy to get. There are about 20 of them. There's shorter or longer lists. Sometimes you'll find a list of about 13. But in this case, in our example here, we said this person should not have done that. Okay. And this is an expectation that what we think of somebody else's behavior is going to affect anything. It's a should statement. And that's one of the cognitive distortions is should statements, because that it's unreasonable for us to expect that what we think should happen is what's going to happen. Okay. And we did talk a little bit about that the last time. So as you're asking yourself why, see if you recognize any of the cognitive distortions that may be going on in there. The next step is to combat that cognitive distortion with logic. So now, okay, so somebody cut me off in traffic. Okay. And they shouldn't have done that. And I realized that I was right. They shouldn't have done that, but I do realize that I have no control. The logic and reason of the situation is that I have no control over somebody else's behavior, and they did what they did. Okay. And now I'm going to just accept it for what it is. Okay. Another thing that you can do when you're asking yourself why, and you ask yourself, why is this bothering me so much, is to see if you can draw a line from this incident to maybe another incident that happened in your past. So, okay, so why was this bothering me so much? Why was I so irritated about this? Because people shouldn't do that. It's not right. It's not fair. Well, there is another cognitive distortion, is the fallacy of fairness, because life is not fair. Okay. But is there something in my past about fairness that might be kicking in again? And you realize that when you were a kid, you got blamed for breaking something that you didn't break. Okay. And you got punished for something that you didn't do. Well, that's not fair. Okay. And it's unfortunate. It was not fair. But that sense of fairness and justice is something that now you have become so angry about somebody behaving in a manner that is unfair on the road that it's kicked open that neural pathway that goes back to that experience. Okay. And now you can, again, use logic and reason to overcome that. So you would say, okay, well, just because I got blamed for something when I was a kid and I got punished for something doesn't have anything to do with the situation that's going on now. I am feeling a sense of justice and fair play, which is very admirable. But it doesn't apply here because life isn't fair and I have no control over this person and I can't punish them. So I'm just punishing myself. So I'm deciding to let this go. Okay. This is how you work through it. You ask yourself, identify and label. Ask yourself why. What is it about this that bothers me? And combat any cognitive distortions that you find or any illogic with reason and logic. Now, you might not always be able to get back to an event in your past that connects to the unreasonable feeling. But a lot of times you will. If you can't, you can just say, okay, Radical acceptance. Yep, I was feeling this emotion and it was unreasonable for the intensity was unreasonable for the event. And because of my feelings of justice, and there is nothing I can do about it, positive and constructive. And of course, if you can come up with a solution to the problem, a way to prevent it in the future, something positive that came out of it, pat yourself on the back for doing the work, even if you can't come up with a reasonable solution to a problem that you have no control over. But good for you, you did the work. Okay, you are learning about yourself. Find something positive about it. Another thing that goes along with this whole concept of working through negative emotions is letting go of control. Okay, we are hardwired to want control. But our efforts to control other people or to control situations generally end up not working. The more we try to control a situation or to control somebody else, the less chance that we have of making it happen. The other thing is that the more we want control over something or someone, the more out of control we're actually feeling about something. Okay, there is a direct correlation between our need for control in our lives and how out of control we actually feel on a subconscious level. Okay, so what do we do about this? There are a couple of ways you can get off the control freak train, and here are some of them. First of all, you want to establish a basic starting point. Observe yourself. Spend a couple of days writing down situations where you felt like you needed to control them. Okay, what were you thinking and feeling? What was going on in your minds? There again is where mindfulness and understanding what's happening in the moment and being able to recognize it and write it down is important. Okay, look at what emotions are at the core of that desire for control. And I'll give you a hint here that 90% of the time, the emotion involved is fear. I'm afraid of something. Okay, so what you would do is deal with that fear in the same way that we were dealing with our anger over getting cut off. Okay, so I am trying really hard to control my child, okay, because I'm afraid something bad is going to happen to her. Okay, so okay, I have fear about my daughter's well-being and I'm trying to exert control over her. Why? Because I know some of the bad things that can happen. Well, why do I think that her behavior is necessarily going to end up in a terrible thing happening to her? Okay, what is she doing? What is something positive and constructive I can do about it? What is my cognitive distortion? Is her going to an event with her friends really unsafe, or is it something that I'm just afraid of because when I was a kid, somebody got hurt at an event? Or is she doing something that I don't think is safe? And now I have to have a conversation with her, which is something positive and constructive that you could do in the situation. You understand how this is working, okay? So what we want to do is find, okay, well, here's the problem. So instead of trying to exert control over your child, which is just going to create dissonance between you, you want to work it out. That's a healthier way to do it. How do you want to feel at the end? Here we're pulling out our power questions. How do I want to feel at the end of this? What would a compassionate parent who is effective do in this situation? Okay, here where the value system kicks in. Also, the only person over which you have control is you. No one else can control our thoughts and feelings, and we can't control other people. We are obligated to allow other people to have their own thoughts and feelings and behaviors. Now, if they negatively impact us, now we can say, okay, I'm going to set a limit. Okay, which is something we will talk about in a subsequent video, is communication and conflict resolution and criticism and setting limits. So we will get to that. And again, let emotions ride along with you if you're having difficulty. Okay, yes, I'm afraid that, I negotiated with my daughter and she's going to go to this event with her friends, but she is going to call me every 2 hours or text me to let me know that she's okay, but I'm still feeling the fear. I still want to exert control, What can I do with this? Okay, fear. Here it is. It's in a container. I'm going to toss it in the back seat. It's going to strap itself in. It's going to ride along. I'm driving. So now I'm going to find something positive, wonderful, and amazing in this moment right now. What can I do? I'm going to read. I'm going to watch my favorite TV show. I am going to do some chores in the house. I am going to focus in on this moment. Always bring yourself back to the moment, okay? And try to find something positive, something wonderful, something amazing, or something to be grateful for. This is why we did that in the beginning. We learned how to be mindful, and we learned gratitude and wonder and amazement and awe, okay? Sometimes we can't change anything. So you change the things that you can, you do what you can in a situation, but make sure to accept and celebrate who you are too. Okay, so the reason that I am fearful for my daughter's safety is because I'm a good parent. Pat yourself on the back. There's something positive that came out of that situation. Put the fear in a jar and throw it in the back seat. Okay. And sometimes we have to embrace the distaste. We all experience moments and situations that are just stressful. So we go to boring meetings. There are boring people. We don't want to go to the dentist. We don't want to experience pain and having to resolve conflict. These are things that are distasteful. And sometimes we just have to embrace the distaste, let go of having control. Okay. Sometimes when it's difficult to stay in the present moment and we use the power questions, we still feel distaste for the particular moment at hand. So my challenge to you is to embrace the distaste. What is something I can learn from this? And here we go. We're taking our viewpoint from this to this, okay? So what is something I can learn from this situation? What is something positive that can come from it? What is something wonderful? So we're changing the way we look at it, okay? Are we doing something that's necessary for our health? Are we learning something? Are we performing a chore that needs to be done? Think about how you want to feel at the end. Think about what the positive benefit is going to be. And here again, we're pulling out the power questions. So hopefully this information has been useful for you. I'm Susan from The Quiet Zone Coaching, and my website is www.thequietzonecoaching.com. If you would like to learn how to apply these different strategies to your own life and your own situation, please do go onto my website and contact me. We can have a quick discovery call. It's free, just to see what's going on in your life and how I can help you get where you want to be. Thanks for watching, and tune in for the next part. See you soon.